Dynasty's over. It was really good, but it didn't follow half of the things I thought were going to happen. So let's just run it. I'm going to start off by talking about Zero Hour. If you don't want to know anything about Zero Hour, because that was totally free on YouTube and you can go watch it, jump to this timestamp. The first 10 minutes, essentially, were all video packages. There was a total video package that we ran. Then we got Jeff Jarrett and Renee and RJ City and Paul White, and they were standing on the entrance ramp, and they were doing their little thing, and then they introduced a couple of videos that started with a full rundown for the night's events and all the matches and everything. Then there was a video that Renee had done earlier in the night where she was talking to Willow backstage, and Willow got jumped by Camille. Camille's back, everybody. Hey, Camille, been a minute. Nice to see you. Then we got a couple-minute long package for the main event, which, again, I've been calling Deities a Dynasty this entire time, and I hashtagged that on Twitter, and I was the only one who ever put it on there. So I don't know why more people didn't pick up on this. Better marketing. Then we came to the first match of the night, which was Marina Shafir versus Alex Windsor. And it was fine. It was a decent match. It ran just under 9 minutes. Shafir did a pretty cool armbar over the top rope on Windsor. She was really honing in on that arm just to try and get some damage done to it. There was like a weird reversal type thing that happened in the corner, but it wasn't quite a reversal, I don't think. It looked kind of botchy to me. But they came back from that and did fine. We ended up with Alex Windsor hitting 2 headbutts, followed by a quick driver, and Alex Windsor got the win, which I didn't. I was hoping wouldn't happen just because I'm rooting for all the heels at the moment, and I think that this really could have boosted Shafir a little bit more, given the Death Riders just a little bit more panache with their stuff, just to show that every single member of it can have their victories, and we just keep feeding Yuta and Garcia the losses. I think that would have been perfectly fine, but can't win them all. So Windsor got the victory, first victory of the night during 0 hour. Then we got a little package for Tekla and Hayter, because they were coming up pretty early in the pay-per-view, honestly, so it's another package. Then we came to Camille having her own little match against somebody named Big Ann. Couldn't tell you who that was. It was her debut on AEW. It was a 7.5 minute match. It wasn't a squash match, honestly. Big Ann did get a few licks in and managed to do her own thing for like a minute. Camille did come out with the victory. After the bell rang, Willow came down. She was all taped up and wrapped up with ace bandage, and Camille just laid waste to her and then left, and that was the whole thing. Then we slid right into Perry versus Davis. It was for the national title. It was a pretty good match. Came in about 8.5 minutes long. Perry had some good offense. He did his absolute very best against Davis. Davis was just continuing to show that he was an insane powerhouse, that he is an insane powerhouse. And there were several things during the match that looked really cool, looked really interesting. Perry hit the ropes at one point and came back at Davis to hit him with a shoulder check or a shoulder block, whatever you want to call it. And he really leaned into it, and then Davis just kind of stood there and let him run into him, and Perry did a full flop backwards. It was very interesting. A couple, like a minute later, Perry did a moonsault off the top rope all the way out to the floor, which did take Davis down. Perry kept teasing pile driver during all of this. He was doing his best to get Davis up, but Davis is a very big, heavy boy, so obviously that wasn't really happening until it did. And he managed to get one, and then Stephon Smith, who was the referee, got a 2 count, but it looked like a 3, but he called it a 2, and he waved off the bell. He said, don't ring it, this isn't over. It was a 2 count, to which the audience began to chant, ref, you suck. So, sorry, Stephon. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. That was a rough one. Eventually, Davis went to go do a power bomb of some form, and Perry reversed it into a Hurricane Rana and held on and yanked down, got him into a pin, and got the 1, 2, 3. So Perry is still our national champion. I I didn't know this match was going. I would have probably picked Perry to keep the title anyway, but I'm glad he still got it. Davis is still just looking like a monster, so I'm all in on that right now. Then we got a Young Bucks versus Okada and Takeshita package. It was what you would expect it to be. Nothing special, nothing fancy. That was a match that we were having later on. Very quick thing. We'll just skip into the next section. So now it was time for Mega Cross to come out, and they did their thing. They were going up against High-End and Maya World. The two ROH fighters came out and did pretty well, but obviously they were going up against Mega Cross, and it didn't work out for them. So it wasn't a squash match. It actually ran almost 11 minutes, which was very impressive. I mean, Maya World and High-End really held their own for a lot of it, but you just can't compete with Mega Cross at that level. Like, that it's... they're going to hold the belts for quite a while. Thank you. There was one point where Megan Bayne was standing, and she had one of the ladies over her shoulders in a fireman's carry. The other one came up to do like a crossbody, and she caught her, so she had both High-End and Maya World in a thing, and she did that like toss with this Samoan suplex, and it was a very bad landing. It wasn't great, but they seem to not be injured from it, so hopefully they can continue their path in ROH and do their thing, and then I'm sure we'll see him again on AEW at some point. I just don't know when. Then we came to the main show. So this is Dynasty. We started off with the Young Bucks versus Takeshita and Okada. It was just over 20 minutes for the entire match from bell to bell. It was pretty good. Don Callis was on commentary during the whole thing. He yelled at a couple of fans, flipped them off at one point, and then Takeshita had, I believe it was Matt Jackson, and pulled him over to the commentary desk, and Don Callis dug his fingers into one of his eyes just to try and help his boys along. It didn't really work out the way I think he was hoping it would, but it was still a very interesting thing nonetheless. Then there was a part where Okada and Takeshita had taken out the Young Bucks pretty well. Like the Bucks were down for the count for the moment, and Okada went over to their corner of the ring and grabbed a headband and one of their vests and put it on, and then he stood in their corner and extended a hand out to get the tag from, I believe it was Nick, and that didn't go over so well, but it was very funny. Very good comedy break right in the middle of all the action. A couple minutes later, the Young Bucks had the upper hand, and they had both Takeshita and Okada in submission holds. Actually, I'm just going to... Here's the video of that. This is very funny. They both, like I said, had just two submission holds. Only one of them actually counted because it was the legal men. There's a slap fight. There's a slap fight going on right there. As you can see, and so there was no tap out, although Okada got real close to doing so, but it was just such a funny little thing that happened, and I enjoyed every second of that. Then we got to the very end of the match. They were about to hit that flippy spike pile driver, and Takeshita went up and grabbed Nick's foot and was going to stop him, and then he looked up and he was just like, you know what? Fuck Okada. And he let go, and he kind of slowly backed up a little bit. And so they hit the spike pile driver, and they got the 1, 2, 3. So the Young Bucks won. Takeshita rolled into the ring, got right above Okada, and was just like, oh, fuck you. And that was also very funny. This rivalry is going to be very ridiculous. I'm kind of thinking that Takeshita is going to be out of the Don Callis family pretty soon after all of this. But I do think that he has still earned his shot at the international title. So we'll just have to see what happens with that over the next couple of weeks. Up next, we got Jericho versus Ricochet, my boys. It was a very slow start because the crowd would not stop chanting for Jericho, and he was hamming it up in the ring. But when the action did finally get going, Jericho had the upper hand for the first couple of minutes. The match came in just under 20 minutes, but it was really good the entire time. Jericho did have the upper hand until Ricochet reversed a lion salt, which was very interesting to see and to watch. And then Ricochet held it for quite a while. Then they kind of went back and forth a little bit. We ended up with Ricochet being the victor using the lion salt to defeat Jericho. So that was crazy and interesting and fascinating all at the same time. But Ricochet did end up with the victory. I'm happy he got the victory, don't get me wrong, but it's interesting that they didn't give it to Jericho. Although Jericho did get very close at one point because Ricochet went up top and he went to do a shooting star press, and Jericho popped up and turned the shooting star press into a code breaker, and that was on par with when Randy Orton changed that shooting star press years ago into an RKO. Like, they are both on par things, and it was very fun to watch. And everybody honestly thought that was going to be the end of the match. It wasn't, though. It lasted a few more minutes. So congratulations to Ricochet. Then up next, we had Darby Allin versus Andrade. That ended up being just around like a 15-minute match, but it was full of lots of running, lots of flying, lots of shenaniganery. Another goddamn photo. I'm sick of these photos. Can we stop with this Andrade fan photo thing? Why? Like, be done with it, please and thank you. I do have another video to show you, though, when there was a whole lot of reversals going on. Darby ended up popping up over top of Andrade. Andrade hit the ropes, and let's just see what happens. So Andrade jumps in, does his thing, goes tranquilo, and then there's Darby running through him, and they both splatter on the outside. So that was fascinating because Darby's a crazy person, and we haven't seen anybody reverse Andrade's stuff like that before, but I'm not mad at it. It was fascinating. A minute after that is when the photo happened. After Andrade was done taking the photo, Darby did a crossbody, I think it was, off the top rope, and from the top rope to the floor, which obviously injured Andrade pretty badly. And so then they rolled back in the ring and they got back at it. Andrade did have a moment where he suplexed Darby off the apron to the floor, which was insane. Darby also hit Andrade from the top rope to the floor with, like, he put him in the chair and did the chair drop kick that he likes to do. So, I mean, it was lots of heavy impact, high flying shenaniganery. There was a moment where Andrade was going to hit Darby with a Samoan drop, and Darby switched it around and turned it into a crossface, which was pretty interesting to watch. You can go find that, I think, on YouTube and Instagram already. But at the end of the day, Darby Allin got the victory. He is now the #1 contender for the title. He will be going up against whichever person, because I haven't said yet, although you probably already know, later on in the coming weeks. Andrade also took his pants off again, and that just, it feels so awkward to me every time he does it, but he did it. And at the very end of the match, after Darby got the victory, Andrade and Darby shook hands, and Andrade was like holding his arm up and like pointing and being like, this guy got, like, he got the victory, like, good for him, ha 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 ha. Then we came to Cage and Cope fighting FTR for the tag championships, and Christian had his elbow taped up because of the attack with the chair that happened yesterday. And it was obviously a big target for FTR, which didn't bode well for Cope and Cage. They did hold their own. Cage did a very good job of keeping everything on their side whenever he was in the ring. There was lots of back and forth throughout the entire match. Cope was doing his best to keep it all together and was actually on top of everything for quite a while. It just didn't end that way because FTR did get the victory and retained their titles. Even though at one point FTR was pinning Copeland, and Cage ran around the side of the ring where Stokely was standing, and he grabbed Stokely and he threw him in, and Stokely rolled and broke up the pin, which was very funny, and that turned into a whole moment where Cash was like, "Why would you do that? Like, this is like, why? What's your fucking deal?" And then Stokely turned to the ref and was like, "Why didn't you just keep counting? You suck at your job." And it was just such a goofy thing to happen. But FTR do still have the belts. Cage and Cope both very disappointed that they didn't win. Cage looks like he needs to go ice his arm a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, that's just how it goes, and this is going to continue to be a rampant thing, and FTR is going to use this to their advantage for promos for quite a while, I'm sure. There was a moment during that match where Cash had gone over and grabbed one of the title belts, and he and Cage were having a tug-of-war for it, like kind of between the ropes, while Dax and Cope were fighting kind of on the other side of the ring. And then something happened, and Cope popped up and turned around right as Cash yanked the belt from Cage's hands. And he turned around, and he got Cope dead set forehead shot. And he started bleeding literally immediately. They showed the replay of it, and it was just like, oh, perfect forehead, and then bonk, and then just blood. And so Copeland was bleeding for a good portion of that match. But Red Mask of Courage, I guess. So he did continue, like I said, he continued to put up a hell of a fight the entire time. Then we smashed cut to Willow Nightingale in the back, cutting a promo against Camille, and I guess they're going to have a match on Wednesday, because even though Willow wasn't cleared to wrestle tonight on Dynasty, she should be cleared to wrestle by Wednesday when Dynamite comes on. So we're just, I don't know. And then we came to the Casino Gauntlet match. And oh boy, was there a lot that happened. I have my notes. So we came in just over 20 minutes. It was very good from top to bottom. We obviously started with Ciampa and Rush. They were just trading heavy blows for the first several minutes. Neither one of them really had the upper hand. It was just two men slapping man meat, and that was the entirety of that until we got our third person to come in, which was Bandito, and he came in right around the 3-minute mark. Then he kind of ran roughshod a little bit, but then everything evened back out, so it turned into like the triple threat. And then Mike Bailey came out a couple minutes later. Once again, he got a couple really good shots in, and then it all kind of evened back out. Then El Clone came out about a minute and a half later. He only got, there was a 90 seconds from Bailey to Clone. He did some fun stuff on the ramp, and right before he slid into the ring, he showed off his new mask, where the eyeglass section turned out to be just the see-through aspect connected to Velcro, and he just ripped that off, so now we can see his eyeballs. Fascinating. He got in, did some of the same stuff, everything started to even out. Pac came in 90 seconds later, and he was just in tall boots, striped socks, and trunks. There was no singlet, none of that. His hair's getting a little longer, and he didn't have it as wet as he normally does, but he did have it pulled back. He's just silver trunks boy, and he was doing his thing. Garcia came in 3 minutes later. Garcia he attempted 5 different pins in the first 37 seconds he was in the ring, and none of them worked. So that was very interesting. At one point, him and Clone were both trying to get a small package roll-up win, and they ended up just kind of rolling around the ring for a minute before they both gave up on that idea and went back to the actual wrestling aspect of the wrestling match. Anthony Bowens came out not long after, followed very closely by Kevin Knight. And Kevin Knight, now that he was connected in with Bailey, so their tag team was together. We also had 2 members of the Death Riders. Everybody kind of cleaned house, and then it became Jet Speed versus the Death Riders in the ring for not terribly long. I'd say about a minute 10. As soon as that happened, there was a fun little sequence of events that all happened, where Rush hit the horns in the corner, and then as he was doing a thing, he got hit by a stomp from Ciampa, and then Ciampa got hit with a power bomb into the backbreaker where he lands on the knees and then bounces off. And then as soon as that happened, Bandito came rushing in and hit a 21-plex from a prone position. Like he had him on the, and it was a whole thing. Then Yuta Wheeler came out. That was fascinating. And so then there were 3 Death Riders, and then there was Jet Speed, and then there was just a bunch of solo guys. So that continued on for a little while. They ended up, a lot of people were out on the floor, and Bandito was going to run and do a dive to take everybody out, but Clone was on the apron. So as soon as Bandito jumped to do the dive, Clone grabbed him and turned the dive into a Spanish fly and took out a bunch of people on the floor. Then Ciampa and Knight ended up on the apron, like on either side of a turnbuckle. So Ciampa grabbed Knight and did a full-on suplex over the corner into essentially the same crowd of people that had just gotten taken out. And then it was just spot after spot after spot after spot after spot, and everybody got a decent shot in. Daniel Garcia and Mike Bailey were in the ring, just the 2 of them, and they started going at it, and then Garcia ended up getting Bailey in the Dragon Tamer. And while Bailey and Garcia were doing that, Garcia did that whole lean back thing, and Kevin Knight came back to life, got up on the top rope and did a UFO splash onto Garcia while he was holding the Dragon Tamer, which broke everything up in a tiny little explosion. Kevin Knight is the new TNT champion. I did not expect them to give the TNT title to Kevin Knight. I was really hoping that they'd give it back to Ciampa since he held it for 11 days. He lost it to Kyle Fletcher, and now Kyle Fletcher is out with an injury. You should have given it back to Ciampa. He named it, for God's sakes. It would have made way more sense, but fine. Kevin Knight has it. We're just going to have to go with that for now. I don't know, man. Up next, we had Tekla versus Hayter for the women's title. And that was a pretty good match, not going to lie. It was very back and forth for the first couple of minutes, and then Hayter got just a little bit of an upper hand, and she was picking up Tekla and walking with her in suplex position, so like legs straight up in the air, up the ramp, and she was going to suplex her somewhere. I don't know where she was planning on having Tekla land, but Tekla ended up reversing it, hit Hayter with a DDT, and then rolled Hayter's body down the entrance ramp back to the ring. It was kind of silly to watch, but it was an amazing feat of strength. That's that. When they got back to the ring, Tekla got into the ring, went up to the top rope, and as soon as Hayter was on her feet, Tekla hit her with a crossbody from the top rope to the floor, wiped her out, reset the 10 count, and we continued on from it. Tekla kept putting Hayter into different random little submission moves to try and win the match. That didn't really work. There was a headbutt and a suplex on the apron by Hayter. They both got back into the ring. Everything kind of went back to 50-50. Tekla got the upper hand for a second and did her spider back bridge thing, to which Hayter was like, haha, I know how to reverse that. And she grabbed her hips, pulled her up, and hit her with a tombstone pile driver. It's the first time I've ever seen somebody actually take their opponent, take Tekla specifically out in that fashion. They ended up getting into the corner. They both climbed up to the top, and they had a little bit of a slap fight, a little bit of a hit fight, and Tekla was sitting facing the audience, facing Hayter and the audience. Hayter was facing Tekla and the ring. Tekla bit Hayter and then hit her with a spider suplex. They got back into the ring, rolled around for a little bit, and then Tekla hit Hayter with a bridge pin, which was interesting to watch her do the way that she did it. But she was just close enough to the ropes that as soon as she hit the bridge, she looked and she reached out and she grabbed the rope, got the 1, 2, 3. Tekla is still our women's champion. Thank you very much. Leave it on her for a while longer. We need the heel heat, and it's working perfect. Then we got Mox versus Ospreay, and I remember saying at some point in one of my last couple of videos that I believed the match would last about 18 minutes and 45 seconds, give or take 5 seconds either direction. I was so close, but by Price is Right rules, I lost because the match actually lasted 18 minutes and 30 seconds. I timed it bell to bell. Ospreay did not disappoint, though, because he came out as soon as that bell rang and hit Mox with a hidden blade right away. No waiting. It was ding, 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 hidden blade. There it was. Done. Over. Then he stood in the corner for a little bit, and he kind of like looked at the crowd, and he has big smiles, and he was just like, hey, how much time I got? How much time I got left? How much time I got left? And then he hit him with another hidden blade. Then he hit him with a neck breaker off the apron, and when they both got back into the ring, Jon Moxley tried to put a triangle choke on Ospreay, to which Ospreay said, oh yeah, hold my beer. And he picked him up and he hit him with a powerbomb. Ospreay is in top, peak performance mode right now. And it showed the first 3 minutes of this match. Then it all came crumbling down because Ospreay pulled him out they were on the outside. He moved the ring steps to the middle of the aisleway on the far side from the hard cam, and he put Moxley's head in the triangle cutout for the ring steps, and he talked some shit, and then he was going to kick Moxley in the back of the head and try and break his neck doing that. And that did not work. Moxley rolled out of the way and moved, and then hit Ospreay with a paradigm shift on the outside. So everything kind of went to shit after that. Moxley got him with a sleeper suplex, hit him with a pile driver on the apron. They just started exchanging blows for a little while. Ospreay somehow managed to hit Mox with a Spanish fly. Moxley got Ospreay back into a sleeper. When Moxley let go, or when Ospreay got out of the sleeper hold, Mox turned it around and hit him with a Gotch-style pile driver. Got a 2 count off of that. Took him to the corner, beat him up a little bit, put him up on the top, and then tried to hit a sleeper suplex, which then got turned into a backflip, and then a missed hidden blade, which then got turned around and actually a completed sleeper suplex. So there was a lot that happened very quickly. Then there was some back and forth, and then the referee got pushed. There was a Styles clash. That got Ospreay a 2 count. Ospreay somehow hurt his hand. I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but he couldn't get things done the way that he normally does. Mox hit Ospreay with a pile driver on the stairs on the outside, which turned into a 9 count, but Ospreay got in just in time, which immediately allowed Mox to hit him with a curb stomp, 2 paradigm shifts, and a Death Rider. 1, 2, 3, Moxley is still your Continental title holder. Fantastic match. I don't know how they're going to continue things on from here because Ospreay was very pissed when he came back to life after the bell. So we'll just have to see what happens from here. Then we got the Conglomeration versus the Dogs for the Trios title, and this one started weird and went to shit after that. The Conglomeration, their entrance started with Orange Cassidy on a couch, Roderick Strong coming through a false door and doing a whole little shtick with Orange Cassidy, and Kyle O'Reilly's back, everybody. Yay! He's been gone for 141 days, and now he's back, and that was kind of a shock. I should have known because he is a Canadian wrestler, but I really thought they were going to bring Ishii back for this, just to have it be a thing and show how powerful the Dogs are for the company and have them hold the Trios titles for a while. And then Gabe Kidd got his fucking wrist broken during the match. So, quick audible, the Conglomeration is now the Trios title holder. The entire match lasted a little over 10 minutes, and after Kidd, there was a moment where there's a cameraman standing there, and Kidd was on the ground next to him with the doctors and the medical team, and you could hear him just going, ow, 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 ow. And they didn't let him back on camera the entire time. And then a couple minutes later, the Conglomeration won because it essentially turned into a tag match until Kyle O'Reilly came back from the dead after getting hit with a full clip on the outside. So Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Orange Cassidy are the trios champions now. I'm sure that throws a monkey wrench in somebody's plans, but that's just what we have. So don't yell at me. I don't know. Then we got to the main event. Yes. And it was slow and planned and methodical and slow for the first couple of minutes, just because Kenny likes to kind of keep things at his own pace, and MJF is really good at making sure that things don't go at his opponent's pace. So it was very back and forth in the beginning. Both men got some licks in. MJF yelled at the crowd a little bit. Kenny Omega was just like, come on, stop being a weirdo, get in the ring, fight me, have a thing. There was a moment where Kenny got kind of bumped into the timekeeper's area. When he came back out, he hit MJF pretty hard with something. Then he went back to the timekeeper's area and he pushed everything off their table, and he grabbed the table and he brought it over and he put the legs down. And while MJF was on the floor, he put the table on top of MJF, got on the apron, and did a double stomp onto the table, which effectively cracked it in half, but it didn't actually crack it in half. You could see the crack. You could see it. But it didn't break in half. It was still a whole table. Because after he did that, he took the table off of MJF, put MJF back in the ring, and then set the table back up right there on the side of the ring. That was the first 6 minutes of the match. Omega tried to hit MJF with a powerbomb. MJF reversed it and hit him with what they called a water wheel drop, but I've always known it to be a sidewalk slam. So we'll just go with whatever you feel is best. Comment down below if you like water wheel drop or sidewalk slam. We'll make a poll out of it. I don't know. Then there was a little bit of back and forth. MJF did a little hop to get over Kenny Omega, and then when he hit the ground, he was like, my knee! Oh God, the pain! And then Omega came closer, and as soon as he came closer, MJF grabbed him and hit him with a really fast little pile driver, just to be a shyster, because he's the devil, and we love him very much. A minute or so later, each guy hit the other one with a poison rana after even more little reversals, and it was very silly. MJF ended up getting on the middle turnbuckle, and he somehow managed to pull off a Panama Sunrise, which then, because he was like seated and Omega popped and rolled out of that, then Omega hit MJF with a knee, got a 2 count off of that, and then they rested for 90 seconds. When they both got back up, they were going at each other again, just trading blows. MJF threw Kenny Omega to the apron and tried to pull off a heat seeker, but it was too early for the heat seeker, so Omega countered the heat seeker by throwing MJF off. He landed on his feet. He ran forward to grab the top rope. Slingshot, cutter, boom. MJF started to really focus on abdomen shots. He was hitting Kenny lefts, rights, kicks, anything he could in the tummy area to injure Omega as much as he possibly could. Omega reversed it at one point, threw MJF to the ropes. They both passed each other trying to do something that they each dodged. And then as they were coming back at each other, they both decided to hit a crossbody, and they went kersplat, and you could hear skin on skin, and then they went bleh. When they got back up, Omega took the lead and was doing everything he could to do damage to MJF. Then they got into the corner again. Omega got MJF up on his shoulders and then climbed the corner turnbuckles, the ropes, and got up and hit MJF with an avalanche one-winged angel, but then couldn't make the cover. So by the time he was able to roll into the cover, he got a 2. No worky. A minute or so later, MJF got the upper hand, and he hit Omega with a package pile driver. Got a 2 count for that. They both took another couple seconds to regroup, regenerate, get their health bars back up, and then they traded slappies for a little bit. It was just like boo doo boo doo doo boo doo boo doo boo boo doo, just little slappies, boop 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 boop. Kenny Omega somehow managed to get 2 V-triggers on MJF and then went for another one-winged angel. The one-winged angel was reversed, and MJF pushed Omega to the ropes. Omega hit the ropes and bounced back, and on his way back, MJF grabbed Bryce Remsburg and pulled him into the way. So Bryce Remsburg got taken out pretty quick, and MJF spun around real fast and hit Omega with a low blow, and then crawled his way over to Bryce's dead body and found the Dynamite Diamond ring because Bryce had taken it from him at the very beginning of the match. And so now MJF had his ring, and he was ready, and he was prepped, and he was going to punch Omega no matter what needed to happen. Except he missed. And Omega got him with another one-winged angel, and he pinned him. And the entire audience counted, and it was 1, 2, 3, 15. And they got all the way to 15 before another referee got into the ring and counted 1, 2, ooh, shoulder up. No go. No go. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. They continued fighting a little bit. They ended up on the apron again. Paul Turner turned around to go check on Bryce Remsburg. And while that was happening, Omega was going to try to, I believe, one-winged angel MJF into the table that was still set up outside. Don't forget about that table. And while they were doing that, MJF stopped the one-winged angel because Omega was having tummy issues. And he turned around real quick, and he had the diamond ring on, and he went kapow right into the tummy, and then grabbed Omega, put him in a tombstone piledriver position, and gave him a tombstone piledriver from the apron through the table. Good night, nurse. Put him back up on the apron, rolled into the ring, finally hit a heat seeker, rolled him in all the way into the ring, got the cover, and Paul Turner counted 1, 2, 3, game over. MJF, still your champion. Thank you. Very happy. So, not a lot went according to the plan I had, especially because Gabe Kidd broke his freaking wrist, but it happens. I'm glad that MJF is still the men's champ. I'm glad that Tekla is still the women's champ. Everything past that, I'll deal with Kevin Knight being the TNT champ. He is a good performer. He's just not my favorite. I don't know. I still think, like I said, it should have gone back to Ciampa. But maybe we'll get something out of this now. So that was the 2026 AEW Dynasty pay-per-view. It's very late. I need to go to bed. Welcome. Peace.